at Berkeley, I had a dialogue with two leftist students. My last question to them was, do you believe people are basically good? And they said yes. And I said, it's so demonstrably wrong, that belief, that there's only one possible explanation for why you hold it, because you live in such a good country.
Yeah, well, that's the goodness of naivety, right? And it's something that's encouraged. You know, you encourage that by producing safe spaces around people. You produce that by sheltering them. You want to preserve that childlike innocence, but once you're no longer a child, it's not childlike, it's just childish. And that's not good, to be a 40-year-old child and to think that people are fundamentally good. It's not that. Good is very difficult. It's by no means the default position. What's the default position? Entropy, catastrophe, tragedy, malevolence, and death. That's the default position. The good struggles up against that. That's no easy thing to manage. To think of that as intrinsic. It's an intrinsic possibility, but it's not something that it's not something that you can manifest without faith and commitment. And the more faith and the more commitment, the better. And the deeper, the better. And it's the most difficult of things to do. And it's appalling to teach people the alternative. And I know that I can speak of this clinically. You know, the people who are most prone to post-traumatic stress disorder are naive people. And this is well known clinically. There's nothing about this that's questionable or unorthodox. If you believe that people are basically good and that the world rewards goodness with good in return, if that's your fundamental belief, that there's not really any such thing as evil, and you encounter someone malevolent, which could be yourself, well, that's often what happens to people who develop post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, it's very common that people develop PTSD because they've done something so incomprehensibly morally repugnant that it's damaged them psychophysiologically, and they cannot recover. It's very common among soldiers. It's not what they saw, although sometimes it is. It's what they did. They have no framework within which to conceptualize it. If you have no theory of evil, if you have no theory of good and evil, if you have no metaphysics, and someone malevolent touches you, you're done. And so, telling people that human beings are basically good and that evil doesn't exist makes them ripe fruit for the picking by the malevolent. And there's nothing about that that's positive. It's mere cowardice masquerading as virtue. It's the devouring mother from the Freudian perspective. I'll keep you innocent, I'll keep you young and naive, and nothing will ever come to harm you. It's like precisely the opposite is the case in life. You see, when I said that it was a miracle that we can all sit here peacefully,
right,
like that is how I look at it. I think every day when I walk out into the world and it's not rack and ruins and flames and floods, that it's a bloody miracle.
Right, exactly.
I mean it, that we hold this together. Yes. It's not an easy thing to do.
Right,
and
right.
Peace, to think of peace as the default position is a form of deep insanity. Like it requires work to maintain peace. And you can't be properly grateful unless you understand how unlikely it is that, well, we're not in the throes of World War III. We're not still in the depths of World War II. That the Cold War is mostly over. That the economic conditions of people everywhere on the planet are improving at a rate that's could only be described as miraculous, and that most things are going in a positive direction. If you assume that that's normative, then you think, well, that's life, and you have no reason to be wide-eyed, to have your eyes wide open in admiration and gratitude at the fact that The worst, which has frequently manifested itself, is not knocking at your door at this moment, because that's the story of humanity, and not peace and prosperity. So here we have it, and here we should preserve it, and here we should spread it. We should do everything we can to live in a manner that makes that most likely, and we should do that because, well, you said, what did you say? Fear of God. It's like, throughout the Old Testament, you know, it's one story after another, is that people develop societies and they become arrogant and they wander off the path. And as soon as they wander off the path, all hell breaks loose. And if you're fortunate enough to be where all hell isn't breaking loose, you should do everything you can to help ensure that we stay the course and walk the straight and narrow path.